Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Kent City Council meeting for December 10th, 2024, our last council meeting of the year. If you could please all rise and join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Kim, could you please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor Ralph.
Here.
Council President Kaur.
Here.
Councilmember Boyce.
Here.
Councilmember Boyd.
Here.
Councilmember Fincher.
Here.
Councilmember Larmer.
Here.
Councilmember Michaud.
Here.
Councilmember Troutner.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. All right. Moving on in our agenda to the approval of the agenda. Any changes from staff or council?
No changes from staff.
Right. Hearing none, a motion would be in order to approve the agenda as published.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion carries. Agenda stands as published. All right. Item number 4 is public communications. We've got several items here this evening. First, under public recognition, I would like to take a minute to recognize our December 2024 Employee of the Month. So every month here at the city, our employees get together and they nominate one of their coworkers for the honor of Employee of the Month. And this person really exemplifies the mission, vision, values, and goals of our city in everything that they do, both their daily duties and special projects. The December 2024 Employee of the Month is not an exception to this group. He's an amazing part of the folks that we've been able to honor this year. Jeremy Perkins is our December Employee of the Month. Jeremy was originally hired on May 16, 2018, into his current position as a combination building inspector in the Economic and Community Development Department. As a combination building inspector, Jeremy performs a variety of work and site inspections related to the regulation of construction and/or conditions involving development, use, maintenance of land and structures to secure compliance to pertinent state and city building, municipal, plumbing, energy, and related construction codes. So you can see he's got a lot on his plate. Jeremy was nominated because he has always shown respect and courtesy to fellow employees and to customers. He has, from the beginning, always worked to improve himself and become more knowledgeable in his job. He is prompt, hardworking, and self-motivated. Jeremy has become a leader in the building inspector group. He's an amazing teacher and selflessly shares his time and knowledge with new hires. One of Jeremy's coworkers said that when they were first hired, Jeremy always answered his calls and would selflessly stop what he was doing to walk through the solution. It was his selfless and teaching ability that sped up the learning curve for this new employee. By taking time to teach him the why instead of just telling him the answer, his knowledge of the code grew exponentially and he became better at all aspects of his job. That same coworker also has admired Jeremy's professionalism and said that Jeremy taught him how to show customers respect and compassion during difficult situations like failing an inspection or posting a stop work notice. So as you can imagine, pretty tense situations, but making sure that everyone is treated with respect is what makes Jeremy stand out. He is knowledgeable, selfless, and a great teacher, and always shows up to work with an amazing attitude and a smile on his face. Jeremy continuously embraces our values, and we celebrate him as December's Employee of the Month. Absolutely. Absolutely. We are very, very fortunate to have amazing employees here at the City of Kent that not only support their coworkers, but also take care of our residents and business owners. And Jeremy is definitely a shining example of that. All right, we are going to move on to some appointments to the Land Use and Planning Board. So our Land Use and Planning Board holds public hearings for council on a variety of issues, works with the public, helps make recommendations to the city council. Tonight we have 2 reappointments that I'm bringing forward for you, and that's Brian Kesterson and Justice Phelps. They have both been serving on the board, as well as Sandra Reynolds. So we've got those 3 council in front of you. And then I want to highlight 2 new appointments to Land Use and Planning. They're both here in the audience with us this evening. The first one is Ali Shasti and the second Dot Oyofeso. Ali is a returning member to Land Use and Planning and served with us 2018 to about 2020, stepped away to do some things, accomplish those in his life, and as a returning member, so we're really excited. And Dot has been an absolute rock star for the city over the last few years. Started out with Kent 101, was part of the comprehensive plan group, and now the newest member of our land use and planning board. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for being here tonight, and thank you for volunteering to work to make your city a better place. We are really, really grateful for you, and council. My hope is that you appoint our 2 new members and reappoint the 3 that are returning. So thank you so much for being here. All right. The next item on our agenda is community events. Council President.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have shows happening at Assessor Showwear Center on December 10, T-Birds versus Wenatchee Wild, and on 13th is also T-Birds versus Spokane Chiefs. And on December 15 is Tacoma Stars versus Chihuahua Savage. And December 31st is again Seattle T-Birds versus Prince George Cougars. And you haven't been to the T-Birds games, they're very, very exciting and fun. They can be a family event or just a date night. So hopefully you can find those tickets at assessorshowwearcenter.com. And that is it, all I have. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. All right. Okay. With that, we will move on from community events to our public safety report. And joining us tonight is Chief Rafael Padilla.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. It's my pleasure to bring this month's public safety report. Get set up there. Thank you, Kim, for setting that up. All right, we'll start off. I'd like to call up Officer Dominique Jandese up front, please, our newest police officer at City of Kent. He graduated here probably about 2 weeks ago now from the Basic Law Enforcement Academy. He's an entry-level officer for us. Let me tell you a little bit about him, and then we'll get him sworn in. He's originally born and raised in Renton, Washington, spent 12 years working and living across the country, including Georgia, North Carolina, Washington, Texas, and Arizona. His wife, Davina, and him have been together for 8 years and married the last 2. He wrote down happily married for the last 2, and I knew that would get him in trouble, so I took that part out. Last October, they were blessed with twins, Thea and Ezekiel, who I believe are here today. His education includes, he graduated from Seattle University with a degree in humanities and earned a second degree in criminal justice. He also participated in the Army Reserve Officer Training Corps, ROTC, program where he earned his commission. After college, he served in the U.S. Army as a signal officer and was stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. He served 4 years and left at the rank of captain in 2016. Additional work assignments have included working for Amazon, building and scaling technology solutions for human resources departments. He also worked in Texas, leading and branding digital marketing for a health and wellness company. And most recently, before Kent, he worked in Arizona building human resources tools for Discount Tire. So he's done a lot the last few years. We asked him why Kent. He said having grown up in the area, he knew he wanted to serve in the community that helped shape the person he is today. That led him to explore opportunities with Kent, and all the positive experience he had with our recruiting team and our onboarding had him decide on working for us. Fun fact about him, in the 8 years that he's been with his wife, they have moved every year. I don't know if that's a fun fact, but it's a fact. And they are very excited and hopeful to make Kent the last move for a really long time. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce Officer Dominique Jandese. Right. Madam Mayor, would you do the honors, please?
This is home. This is good. All right. If you could please raise your right hand and repeat after me. state your name,
I, Dominic Janduse,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the United States of America,
to the United States of America,
the state of Washington,
the state of Washington,
and the city of Kent,
and the city of Kent,
that I will uphold the Constitution and laws
that I will uphold the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the state of
and
Washington,
the state of Washington,
and that I will obey the rules and
and
regulations
that I will obey the rules and regulations
of the Kent Police Department.
of the Kent Police Department.
Congratulations. Feel free to come up here and take pictures. It's absolutely fine. You've got a fan club.
Yeah.
You want to introduce your family real quick?
Yeah, so thanks everyone. Thank you to my wife for being here. And like you mentioned, the kids, so the twins just turned 1 year old. So really appreciate them for staying up past their bedtime right now and doing so well. My parents, my sister, aunt, cousin, godfather, and two of my closest friends. So thank you all for being here tonight, and I appreciate the support of you all and the city as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. All righty. Transitioning now, I want to take a moment to provide what are close to end of the year stats, and I mean close to because we still have another month to go, 3 weeks. But this is a pretty good picture for where we are, and I feel, I don't want to jinx it, but relatively secure. This is well, this will be close to where we end by the end of the year. So let's go through some information. As you know, we track several crime categories. We look at a 5-year range, and all of the categories we cover are felonies with a few exceptions like vehicle prowls, and we'll talk about that. As you look at the graph for our viewing audience and our audience here, the blue bars represent a normal range of where we expect to be month to month in terms of our numbers. The red line indicates where we actually landed this year, okay? So if you look at the start of the year in January, we're right in the mid-range. We trend down a little bit. And then in June and most of the rest of the year, we trend down from that point there. I hope all of you remember what happened in June, and I think there was a correlation there. So that's what we did for vehicle prowls down there this year, or vehicle thefts. Next is vehicle prowls. We actually stood below the trend for most of the year. One of the things we saw during some of the last few years is that vehicle prowls went down and vehicle thefts went up. And we talked about that in previous sessions where the attempts to get away include getting in a car. So why break into a car when you can just take the whole thing? So we think that says a lot for what's going on. That's our trend for this year. Also coming in below the 5-year average. Robberies. So these include unarmed robberies, what we call strong arm robberies. These also include our robberies that include firearms and other weapons, or the mention or threat of robberies. A lot of these were crimes of opportunities throughout the year. And as you saw, we kind of stayed right in the mid-range with the exception of the last 2 months. So right in the mid-range there for what was going on with robberies. Residential burglaries. So this is when someone breaks into your house. This trend actually is a continuation of what we've seen typically the last 2 years, in that during the pandemic, when we transitioned to a lot of work from home or people staying at home in general, it became less advantageous to break into a home, right? People were there. So we did see and have seen now a consistent below our 5-year mark in terms of residential burglaries, which we'll just count that as a good thing. Commercial burglaries, so break-ins to businesses. This is different than years previous. We were out in the middle range for most of the year up until about May, June, and then we see that we come in below the 5-year mark there as well. So if you remember a lot of the cars smashing into the buildings and taking stuff, those were our burglaries. So we are seeing positive turnaround in that crime category as well. And then our verified shootings. This slide, if you see, there's the different categories. The homicide data I want to be really clear on, those are homicides that were committed via firearm. That is not all of our homicides, okay? So right now, as of November, we hit 7. Unfortunately, I need to report. We've had 3 homicides since this report was completed. So we're up to 10 right now, homicides via firearm. But there's our injuries, so shootings where people were verified injured. Property damage, these are shootings we showed up where nobody was hurt, but buildings, cars, and what have you were hit. And the last one were shots fired where we couldn't determine that anything was hit, but we had evidence of a shooting occurring based on witness reports, and generally find numerous casings, shells left behind at the scene. This total here is encouraging. We are down somewhat from the last few years. And again, not wanting to jinx anything, I think we will finish below our last 2-year totals, and pretty significantly so. So year to year, and again, I want to be real clear on the data here, we are comparing 23 to 24. And while I am excited about where we are and down in every category, I also want to be transparent in saying we are coming down from record highs. So while we're headed in the right direction, we still have lots of work to do, but we'll take the wins when we can get them. And if you notice, we have a clean report card there. We are down significantly in a couple of categories and down in every category from last year. And so that's what our numbers look like. Really wanting to see our shootings, obviously, and our robberies, because those are our more violent crimes that occur, want to see those come down significantly. So what's driving the decrease in crime? We talked about our staffing most of this year. We're now approaching 2 years where Kent PD has had stabilized staffing to the amount funded, right? We've covered that. We still need a lot more police officers. But stabilizing staffing has a cascading effect in that we are able to restaff our specialty units. So our crime problem units, our proactive units, our traffic units. A lot of people don't think about this in this way, but traffic does prevent because their visibility does prevent crime. And then our neighborhood response team there, NRT, our special operations unit, is back to nearly fully staffed. And we have just established the starting of our crime reduction unit, which is the new acronym you get to learn, CREW. And the CREW will be designated to support patrol in working hotspot crime areas, and we will be putting out reports on their activity. They've done several good initiatives this far, and we'll be reporting on that. Stabilized staffing results in faster response times, and again, more discretionary time for the officers means more opportunity for proactive patrol. Another thing is restoring the authority to conduct vehicle pursuits of vehicles. This serves as a huge deterrent. If you look at the crimes that we looked at, or that I showed, and we looked at the ones that involve a vehicle, all of those have gone down at the turning point in the law. So that, to me, is a clear correlation, and we'll see more of that. And then being able to pursue, kind of a weird thing comes out of that. We actually make more arrests, and so we are able to maybe stop the cycle of crime when we get the chance to impact it. I also want to highlight the use of our technology. Many of you may have seen Renton did a media release on their Flock technology cameras that give alerts for stolen cars, missing persons, and all that. Want to brag about the city council and the mayor. You approved that technology for us about 2 years ago. Yep. So we have solved homicides. Without giving away too much information, because I want to be successful in catching suspects when we can, those cameras have led to leads on numerous violent crimes, and we have solved homicides and shootings. We've solved those crimes for other cities in the region because we have this asset, along with other technology that you have authorized for us to use responsibly in trying to reduce the violent crime that we're seeing. So that's a huge kudos to everybody here. And then I have to give a shout out to our women and men that do the job, not just the officers and detectives, but our professional support staff, our correction staff. We really turned the page last year in emphasis on getting back out there and getting back after trying to get a handle on the high crime, and you're starting to see that return. We spoke about in years past how we onboarded 42 to 50 new officers who came on board, and their idea of law enforcement was that you couldn't pursue and you couldn't arrest. So we've had to do some training through that. They're on board. We still lead with compassion and services. We do everything we can to find exceptions and alternatives to incarceration. But when we need to enforce the law to protect our community, that's what we do. And so our men and women are running their lap, so to speak, in that regard. And I'll pause there for questions.
Any questions? Councilmember Boyd.
Hello, Chief. How you doing, sir?
Good, sir. Thank you.
I have a question. You talk about the homicides per shootings were a total 7, right?
We're now at 10, sir. Yeah,
But not at 10. So outside of weapons being used, how many homicides do you think we had this year?
I want to be careful here, but off the top of my head, I think we have 2 additional that are not firearms related. I also want to be careful in noting that sometimes our initial assessments and data gets changed when cases get resolved and more information comes in. But right now, I think we're looking at a total of 12 for the year so far.
12, okay. And another question is, so far as the shooting, is there like a particular area of Kent that the majority of the shootings are taking place?
There isn't one particular area. We tend to see more of our shootings in our high traffic areas around the city, so major intersections. We also work on some properties where there's a high prevalence of drug use and drug activity. There's a strong correlation there as well. I could give you offline, I can show you our crime stat map where we have some concentrated crimes.
Okay.
But when we see violent crimes occurs, it's also in the same areas that we see burglaries, robberies, and other crimes associated. They tend to be hot spots in a universal sense.
Okay. Okay. So, Chief, since I met you and since I've been knowing you this past year, I think you've been doing an excellent job. And I hope you keep up the good work. And you know you got I'm behind you 110%. You know that, right?
Yes.
Whatever you do, okay? And thanks for the job. Well done, and Happy New Year, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Council President.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Chief. It's good to see you here. Sort of a good news for us to looking at these numbers. I had a couple of questions. Well, first, there's a decrease in home burglaries, residential burglaries, but we keep hearing from our residents about incidents that usually on, either they find us in public or next door or Facebook or Ring. They're constantly, probably just a social media thing, but just adding more out there. And then the second question was, I saw the press release for the 2 suspects, I think, was it Redmond or Sammamish caught for the home burglaries, but they mentioned City of Kent detectives in there, and what was our role in that? So
to answer your first question, I think there is more visibility now. One of the trends that I've noticed, and maybe you've seen the same, is that our traditional news media is like going to the victims and doing interviews with them directly. That's kind of a more recent thing. And so they're getting attention to their stories probably in a more visible way. I also think that with the advent of Ring cameras and all the security measures, people are reporting and giving visibility which makes for a better story as well. I know that I saw a report from Federal Way today. They are seeing similar numbers in their decrease. And I'm going to guess, and speaking to my peers recently, the region is starting to see a regression back to more normal numbers. We still have work to do. So that's the answer on the burglary thing. I don't have specific information on the case you're talking about because we have several. So my answer to you is that very often the work that we do in Kent leads to solving cases in other jurisdictions. Those flock cameras I talked to you about, what will happen is a stolen car will alert in Kent. Our flock camera will record the license plate. Something of note to everybody that's listening, we do not record images of people. It's just the cars by state law, okay? There's some confusion about that. So that goes into a database and says this stolen car was here. Well, that stolen car goes up and does crime in Marysville or Redmond, and they don't know where to look for this car. All they have is a description. A lot of agencies know if they call Kent, we will do a check, and that flock, the AI that goes with the flock camera system will search our databases and go, yeah, it could be this green car license ABC 123. Now the detectives have to follow up. And so it generates a huge amount of leads for people. And that goes on every week. It really does. So we're happy to be partners in that. And so we'd like other cities to get on with the tech too.
Yeah, this specific case was about that ring we recently had, that crime ring that was here in our Kent area as well. They had attacked the Gurdwara and temple and mosque.
Yes.
That group. So that's kind of what I was. But if you have more information, please do let me know.
I will look it up.
Thank you, and I do appreciate the good work. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Larmer.
Yeah, thank you. Chief, question on the robberies. There's a significant drop in October and November, and that doesn't correlate with the change in the law. So curious if we have any idea what is leading to that drop.
I do. The efforts we do sometimes are really impactful, but sometimes there's really simple things that do the job even more. And that simple thing usually is when the weather gets bad, being outside and doing robberies go down.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we see that year after year.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Cold and sweat. I'll do my robbery later.
Councilmember Michaud.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your presentation, Chief. I'm wondering how our homicide numbers this year, non-shooting, compare to previous years?
You mean homicides total?
Yes.
We're going to be down in that regard. I don't have a specific number, but we will be down. Well, okay, there I went and jinxed it. We should be down. Sorry.
All right, Council, any other questions on this part of the report?
All righty. Switching to some more positive, I guess, conversation. This past Saturday, we held our 11th annual Shop with a Cop up at the Target store on our East Hill. It was a great event once again this year, and I wanted to highlight some of that and some of the great work that was going on. Every year, we partner both with Target stores and Kent Youth and Family Services here. Kent Youth and Family helps put us in touch with underprivileged youth and their families that who otherwise would not have a holiday with gifts or things of this nature. We partner with them, they identify the kids, we bring officers in on volunteer time to go and shop and spend time with these kids in a non-law enforcement way, right? A very positive thing we've been doing. This year, the fundraising was phenomenal. Mayor Ralph led the charge on a lot of that, as she always does. Target stores kicked in a huge donation, along with our Rotary clubs, Kent clubs, Airways Brewing, and many other private donors. We reached $6,000, which goes a long ways for this effort. So I want to thank all the donors. We were all able to hit what I say spoil 50 kids this year with 100, which is a record for us. And big thanks go to, like I said, Mayor Ralph. She's been leading this fundraising effort in this program for years. Coordinates that, the card purchases, a big part of the planning. Assistant Chief Jared Kasner, if you look at the photos.
I was wondering if that was
Buddy the Elf,
there.
that is also known as Assistant Chief Kasner. He really gets into character, so stay tuned for the video that Multimedia is doing. You'll see it. He missed his calling maybe in life, but but Buddy the Elf is there. He's part of the planning team as well. Detective Chelsea Pribble, if you look in the center there, the banner for this year's effort, that's Detective Pribble there with one of our youth. She coordinates the officers and all of that, the volunteers. And our volunteers come from across the city. And I want to note that we had volunteers from both the police department, officers, and professional staff. Our Kent Explorers were there. We had representation from our HR staff, our law team, and members of their families came out. We've got people that have been tending this for years, and they bring their kids with them every time to help and show them this very thing. So also want to recognize our communications team, Tracy Padilla there, and our multimedia team, Josh Hairston and Kevin came out and did the video productions as well. So a big effort. And we can't go without noting the donation that came from Target as part of their Heroes and Helpers program. But we love our name, Shop with the Cops, so we kind of kept it as that. So with that, really great event. Looking at the photos there, you can see a lot of what's going on. Group picture at the bottom there. And then up to the left, I also want to recognize the local Kent Target staff. They come out every year and help us with this, and it's a big effort there as well. Some of those photos, and then just a few more here of the team. So a great event, and glad we could do it. Somehow, some way, that elephant that Buddy the Elf is holding there made it to my house somehow. I don't know how that happened. So. And then to finish up the report, and then I'll take any questions that the council has, I wanted to inform the community that this weekend, starting Friday, Kent will be hosting the King County's effort of Night of 1,000 Stars. Night of 1,000 Stars is a traffic safety emphasis that occurs. We will be bringing in dozens of officers in King County to work in partnership with the Washington State Patrol out on high visibility enforcement. They'll be monitoring for motorists who are speeding, driving while distracted, or driving under the influence. And the name, the Night of 1,000 Stars, 1,000 stars represents the 1,000 badges that will be out across the state over the course of the holidays, helping to keep our streets and our roadways safe. This event, let's see here. As many of you know, we have seen back-to-back record-setting years of fatal collisions in our state. And every year during this holiday, we do see tragedy results from collisions that involve speed, intoxication, or distracted driving. So we are calling on everybody in the community to do their part and keep our streets safe by driving the speed limit, keeping their phones out of sight, and planning for a sober ride this holiday season. And I do want to recognize our very own Sarah Halstead with our community education unit. She serves as one of 2 target managers for King County, and she's basically the big driving force behind why this is located here in Kent. So with that, let's be safe out there these holidays. Madam Mayor, that completes my report, and I'll take any questions.
All right, thank you, Chief. Any additional questions for Chief Padilla? Okay, thank you so much. All right, we are going to move on in the agenda to reports. So each one of the members of your city council serve on committees outside of our normal council meetings. So in addition to the first and third Tuesdays of the month, they represent the city of Kent on regional boards, statewide boards, making sure that our voice is heard, that our residents and businesses are represented, and that's both in policy making as well as things like grant processes. So really grateful for the engagement of this council. Before I turn it over to Council President, I want to highlight just a couple of things from work that I've been doing over the last couple of weeks. I serve on the Sound Cities Association board. We are in the process of looking for a new executive director. At this point, it's been narrowed down to 2 candidates, and there will be further interviews, and so I will keep you all posted as that search goes forward. I also am on the MRSC board, Municipal Research Organization. A lot of our city staff use MRSC for interpreting of laws, understanding standards. Council, it's a tool that's available to you and to our general public. We're in the process of starting our strategic plan. We just, our executive director did retire just a few months ago, and we've got a new executive director and coming on board and starting some strategic planning there about the services that we provide to municipalities. Additionally, I have a whole list of thank yous. So Saturday was Winterfest. I want to say thank you to the Kent Lions Club and our Kent Parks Department for putting on that fabulous event. The parade, council was there in golf carts. I want to say thank you to Toby, our council assistant, for putting all those lights on and making them very festive. We had Santa Claus delivered, and our giant tree in the plaza was lit and fun had by all. Again, that wouldn't have happened without the Lions Club and our Kent Parks Department. Additionally, I want to just chime in. We did have Shop with the Cop on Saturday. Chief said this is our 11th year, 50 kids. Our officers donate their time, and our community steps up in a really big way. If it were not for the donations from individual residents, Kent Noon Kiwanis, Sunrise Rotary, Airways Brewing, We Love Kent, Target, we would not be able to do this. And I will tell you, it is absolutely one of my favorite things during the year, and watching those kids come through. I really do want to highlight, so many of the kids that come through that line, we pair them with an officer, and they get a set amount of money to spend, and I would say well over 50%, probably closer to 75 or 80% of those kids come through, and I ask them, what's your favorite thing? Did you have a good time? And inevitably they say, I got something for my sister or my brother, my cousin, my mom. One girl come through and she's like, I got matching pajamas for my mom and I. Like, if that doesn't make you cry and make your heart melt, I don't know what does. It was an amazing event, and if it was not for the generosity of this community, it would not happen. So just a huge thank you to everybody that helps us put that on. With that, I am going to look to my right to our CAO, Pat Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of things. You will have a presentation from Brianna and Amina tonight regarding our legislative agenda. And the one thing I want to remind you of is when you hear that legislative agenda, remember that during the legislative session, you will have a number of staff members here at the city working diligently to help during that process, to help our legislators understand impacts of certain legislation on our community and on other communities. It's a very, very busy time for our staff, and you might see information that, from us on that, and of course you'll get reports from Brianna and company throughout the period of time. So just remember, behind every piece of legislation, there's a lot of city work that's behind it. Whether or not we have anything to do with it or not, we're often commenting on things. So that's on the horizon here. And then we're at our last meeting of the year. And so I just want to, it's been a busy year. We've passed a ton of ordinances, balanced budget, the comp plan, it's on tonight's consent. An amazing job that staff did there. So many contracts. Talk about last year's legislative session. That was a burner. Boy, we put in a lot of time. We had a number of staff members putting a lot of time in that. A lot of crime fighting initiatives that the chief has implemented recently. So many public works projects. I mean, the list just goes on and on. You have an exceptionally hardworking group of employees here that implement your policies. So on behalf of them, our city employees, we just want to wish you happy holidays, and we're looking forward to another busy next year. So thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Council President.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We had committee of the whole meeting earlier this evening, and all that information is available actually on our City of Kent Facebook page and TAV 21. One of the main highlights was interlocal agreement that we signed with Puget Sound Regional Fire Authority, and our last consolidating budget adjustment for the year. And I do serve on various regional committees, and I had DVI Regional Committee this afternoon. I have Growth Management Planning Council happening tomorrow. We did have Puget Sound Clean Air Agency Advisory Council during the bomb cyclone, and I serve as the chair for that committee, but I was unable to connect because of no power or internet. So, but all that information is available. There's updates that I did provide links in our newsletter that's coming out for council tomorrow evening. So they'll have updates from myself and my colleagues. And I do want to thank all of our staff and Wish everyone happy holidays. With that, I'm going to start over to my left here with Councilmember Troutner, please.
Thank you, Council President. I am a member of the Regional Transit Committee. We met on November 20th. We had the pleasure of having our King County Metro General Manager, Michelle Allison, join us for our caucus meeting and answer questions. There was also a presentation on Metro's performance measures dashboard, and there is a link to that in our council newsletter that comes out tomorrow. We also had our last meeting of the year for the Puget Sound Regional Fire Authority Governance Board. I am vice chair of that board, and I sit on it along with Councilmember Larmer and Councilmember Boyd, and highlights for that board are also in the newsletter. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Michaud, please.
Thank you, Madam President. I serve as the Parks Subject Matter Chair for our Committee of the Whole meetings, and we had one item tonight, and it was adopting the 2025 through 2029 CDBG Consolidated Plan and Community Participation Plan, and we did approve that, and it'll be on the consent calendar tonight and tonight's meeting. And links to both of those documents are on our website. I serve on other various committees, and all that information is in the newsletter.
Thank you. Councilmember Larmer, please.
Thank you, Council President. I serve on the King County Aging and Disabilities Advisory Council, and we will meet next week, so I'll have a report on that. I'm also the subject matter chair for the Economic and Community Development. And we had quite the agenda tonight in the Committee of the Whole. We had 7 items. Most of them were related to the comprehensive plan, some ordinance changes. Of course, then we unanimously moved to put the comprehensive plan on tonight's agenda. We also accepted $500,000 grant for brownfield environmental protection studies. And that ends my report.
Thank you, Councilmember Larmer. Councilmember Boyce, please.
Thank you, Madam President. I am the chair for public safety, and the chief did a phenomenal job. We'll talk about what's going on the City for the Year report, and I thank him for that. Also, I'm a representative for PIC SEA. We'll have a meeting tomorrow. But also, just quickly, I wanted to say, I know, Pat, you talked about the staff, right, and what a phenomenal job they've done, and I totally agree with that 200%. But also, I just want to take a moment and just say thanks to the leadership team, Madam Mayor and the leadership team. Really, you guys kind of set the roadmap, right? So I just want to thank you for all the hard work that you done in 2024. And like I said, there's plenty more to do in 2025, but I just want to recognize the leadership team as well, too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyce. Councilmember Boyd, please.
Yes, I also sit on the Regional Fire Authority, Puget Sound Fire, with Councilmember Troutner and Larmer. This past Wednesday, December the 4th, I wasn't able to make it to the meeting. Something came up where I couldn't show. But I would like to let the people on the council and audience also know that within the past couple of months, I have applied for committee positions with the AWC and SCA. So hopefully in the year 2025, I'll have more to report out. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyd. Councilmember Fincher, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Today we had our KCD, King Conservation District meeting. We went over a number of our accomplishments for the year. And for me, my top ones that we accomplished were redistricting, because we've been working toward election reform, getting that on the regular cycle. Passing our rates and charges, we have made leaps and bounds with our financials, and so that really showed, and had a easier time. I'll say it was never easy, but an easier time getting that passed. And it was nice that it was recognized, the relationship between the board and the council that works, the advisory council. So that was good. And then the third thing was we had a record number of plants sold. We sold 55,000 plants. We have the native plant sale in the first 2 weeks. Usually takes about close to 3 months to reach that number. So pretty amazing. And we still have more time to go. Mental Illness and Drug Dependency Advisory Committee meets on Thursday. Arts Commission will meet tomorrow. And I did want to mention with the Arts Commission, one of the organizations that we funded through a grant was the Rainier Chorale. had the good opportunity to go to that this weekend, just yesterday. And Dennis Higgins, our own former council member, was one of the voices that was singing that day. So it was a beautiful concert. So again, if you don't get out to hear any of the Spotlight series events, anything that the city is offering, you're missing out. And then the final thing would be KCD, King Conservation District. I mentioned that one. I think I got them all in.
Thank you, Councilmember Fincher. And with that, that's the end of our report. And I just want to remind everyone that there's a council newsletter that's starting tomorrow. And if you want to get updates from what the council is up to, you can sign up. The links are all available on our social media for you to sign up. And we'll be sending those out twice a month. With that, back to you, Madam Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Council President. Item number 6 is public hearing. We do not have one this evening. Item number 7 is public comment. Kim, do we have anyone signed up?
We do not.
All right, we will move right on to the consent calendar. Consent calendar is a compilation of work that the council does through both workshop and then on to committee of the whole. These items have been discussed, questions asked, conversation had, and have been voted out of committee of the whole without controversy. Tonight on the consent calendar, we have items A through W. Council has been very, very busy. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. I just want to take a minute to say, while that action was very, very quick, the amount of time and effort that goes into a consent calendar, items A through W, and the meat that is here in this consent calendar is pretty significant, both in staff time, the amount of time that council has spent studying these items, again, asking questions and working through them is pretty impressive. So council, nice work, and same thing to all of our staff that have gotten us to this point. All right, on to another big topic. We have other business. Tonight we have 2 items on other business. The first one is the ordinance adopting the 25-26 biennial budget. Joining us is our Finance Director, Paula Painter.
Thank you, Mayor Ralph, Council President Corr, members of City Council. I'm happy to be here today with ordinance number 4511, which is going to establish our 2025-26 budget. This budget process really began back in May when we had our council retreat. And during that retreat, we spent some time talking about the city's financial position. And I really want to take time to thank all of you, all the council members here, for really diving into understanding where we're at as a city and kind of the things that we have facing as we're looking towards the future. And thank you very much for, at that time, agreeing to go with the status quo budget. That leaves us in a very good place as we start looking towards our future and what we're going to end up doing. So I really do appreciate that. And it is a great thing, I think, that we start those conversations incredibly early. So when we started then working with departments, all of the requests that came through for additions to the budget, they came with funding sources. And if they didn't have a funding source, they did have some reductions to their budget. So overall, the 2025-26 budget totals $884 million. Of that, $259.4 million of that is within our general fund. When we start looking at some of the changes that happened in the budget, we did have some really modest changes to our revenues, really truing those up. So we received our 1% in property tax plus new construction. We made some minor adjustments to sales tax and utility taxes. But the biggest change that we had to our taxes had to do with our B&O taxes, where we did add in that square footage change that was already scheduled, so that added another $3 million to our budget. We had changed the rate for our gross receipts for manufacturing from 0.001 to 0.00125. That added another $845,000 in revenue. And then also we adjusted that max or the cap that we had for retailing gross receipts. So now those businesses who are earning more than $100 million in revenue will be paying their fair share of those taxes. By doing those changes, we were able to afford some of the changes that we've mentioned in our expenditure budgets, and that included funding some of our police activities to sergeants, a patrol officer, and a correction sergeant. In addition to some of these changes in our expenditure budget, we did have to adjust, obviously, for cost of living and supplies and services budgets to increase by 2% or match any contracts that we have. Some of the significant changes to the budget included extending 4 TLT positions, converting 4 TLT positions, and then adding a few other additional positions, including a flood plan certification engineer in ECD, an assistant city attorney beginning in 2026, a probation officer, and a meter reader. This budget also included some additional funding for parks and PDES, stormwater system management, some encampment cleanup services that we need, as well as security services for our parks. It also included some funding for crime-fighting technology and the North Hill Community Park roadway improvements. So when we look at, the overall budget, you can see that our staffing level did increase for the biennium, a total of 9.37 FTEs, bringing us to, in 2025, 761 FTEs. And that is all I have for my presentation. And at this point, I'd turn it over to any questions you may have.
All right, Council, any questions for Paula? All right. Then a motion would be in order.
Madam Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 4511, establishing the 2025-2026 biennial budget.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Boyce.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I definitely will be supporting this here. I just wanted to take a moment, these things just don't happen, for us, the position that we're in with our budget. We have a lot of our neighboring city going through tough time that made some tough decisions on their budget. I could think, Madam Mayor, we came on this council in 2012. I remember the reserve, about $130,000 is what we had in our reserve, and really in sad shape. So over the years, through the council, there have been great decisions being made to put us in a good position, and I will hope that we will continue. Because the decision we make today, we're looking at tomorrow, and I say tomorrow, we're talking 3, 5, 10 years down the road. So that reserve seemed like a lot, but you put it in days for what the city spend is really not that much. So I would continue to encourage us to be fiscally responsible as we look at this budget. Also want to take a moment, just our finance team, Paula, you does a phenomenal job. And we got the silent assassin back in the back there, Michelle, who I call, who just really do a good job. And I just want to say you and your team, keep up the good work. We appreciate all the work you've done. And then kudos to my council member, because we are in great position today because of some of the candid conversation that we have, and that we continue to have. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Council President.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I want to echo Councilmember Boyce mentioned, and Paula, thank you. Thank you, Michelle, and your team for the amazing work you've put in several months. This budget, we were able to approve it tonight, or I'm waiting for it to approve it tonight. It took a lot of work. We have been through a lot of retreat, workshops, committees of the whole, and having conversations on this budget, sending in our questions. So thank you for answering those and working through this. And as Councilmember Boyce mentioned, we've been having conversations with some of our other cities that are not in the same position. So I want to say thank you to my colleagues here on being very wise with our spending and our revenue options, and looking at everything that we want to work through. And hopefully we will be having positive conversations again instead of just a status quo budget in the future. So thank you so much.
All right. Any other question or any other comments? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Paula, thank you. Michelle, thank you. Council, I want to say thank you so much for all the work that you have done on this budget, and to all of our city staff that have spent months and months and months getting us to this point. I really do believe it's the fact that collectively we start having conversations in February, right? If this were something we just did at the end of the year, if the council wasn't aligned in their values and the way that they want to move the city forward, we wouldn't be here. You've heard it from several of you that we're stable. It's hard. I think Councilmember Larmer, when we started talking about status quo budget, like, I want to do something big. I want to do something that leaves a mark. I think that is absolutely a sentiment that is felt by everyone up here. It's felt by our city staff and by our residents. The unfortunate part of that is without funding streams, it makes it really, really hard to do that work. The good news is we're stable. And hopeful that at some point we will see some of that funding restored. And I'm going to use that as our absolute lead in, the way that I made that connection there. So, Council, again, thank you so much for passing this budget. Thank you again to Paula and Michelle and the whole finance team, all of our directors and folks in every department that put this together. Very, very grateful. With that, I am going to introduce Brianna Murray. She is our contract lobbyist with Gordon Thomas Honeywell, here to talk about our legislative priorities. One, and the primary one, is all going to be about the ability to do those big, bold things for our community. So, Brianna, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. I'm Brianna Murray. I'm with Gordon Thomas Honeywell Government Relations and serve as your contract lobbyist. I'm joined by my associate, Amina Abdallah, who will be helping me out this upcoming session and making sure that I stay upright and ready to go. This evening, we have a three-part presentation for you. The first thing we want to do is ground our presentation in what to expect and the political realities of the upcoming 2025 legislative session. And we want to talk with you about the draft legislative priorities that are included within your materials this evening, a big part of which are how to find resources for the Kent community to build off of the conversation you all just had, and then finally conclude with next steps. So with that as our outline, I'm going to turn it over to Amina to provide you with the 2025 grounding and expectations on what to expect politically.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Council. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today. I'm going to start with the political climate, and then I will provide you a budget overview. We had a 79% voter turnout in Washington State and nearly 4 million ballots that were counted. I'll highlight a few things from the election for you. We can start off with the initiatives. There were 3 different initiatives that the legislature sent to voters for consideration, all of which were to repeal recent tax measures. The voters have rejected these repeal measures, so the Climate Commitment Act, a recently enacted capital gains tax, and the long-term care program have all been upheld. We've heard from recent conversations with legislators that this is being perceived as a green light for progressive tax reform, so you can expect some tax proposals coming forward this upcoming legislative session. There was a 4th initiative on the ballot that is related to the access to natural gas that has passed. The governor has indicated, and the media has also reported, that the opponent will be challenging the single subject rule and the constitutionality of that initiative. So the outcome of that initiative is still kind of unclear. All 9 executive office positions were retained by Democrats. Democrats have very solidly retained and expanded the majorities in both the House and the Senate. There were several really close races this election, including the 10th legislative district, 17th, 18th, and the 14th legislative district. Democrats have gained 1 seat in each chamber, giving them 30-19 in the Senate and 59-39 in the House. This means they have a 60% vote in each chamber, and with that, they have the ability to approve bonds and transfers out of the budget stabilization account without Republican support. While there isn't necessarily a significant turnover in politics in Washington State, there is a significant turnover in the people. We saw about 18 different legislators choose not to seek re-election to the seats that they were in. So we have a lot of new faces coming into the legislature this session. I'll note that Senator Kaiser from the 33rd Legislative District announced her retirement effective December 10th, as you all may know. After her 29 years of service, This departure will lead to the appointment of a new senator, bringing changes to Kent's representation in the state legislature. Additionally, if either the current state representatives, Tina Orwell or Mia Gregerson, are appointed to the Senate seat, the House position will become vacant, prompting further shifts in legislative representation. I'll also add that your representatives from the 47th and the 11th LD have been reelected, so there'll be an Olympia, so there's some consistency there. As is the case with the beginning of a new legislative biennium, the legislature will now go through a process where they reorganize themselves, reelect their leadership, identify their committee chairs and ranking members, and identify which legislators are going to be serving on which committees. That process will occur throughout November, and then legislators will meet the week of December 9th, so this week, essentially, in what's called committee assembly days, where they start holding work sessions on topics they plan to tackle this next session. I'll highlight here that through this process of reorganizing, Chris Stearns from the 47th Legislative District was selected as Speaker Pro Tem, and Senator Claudia Kaufman from the 47th LD will be Chair of Business, Financial Services, and Trade, and will remain leadership liaison to tribal nations. We're waiting for additional committee assignments to be finalized in the coming weeks, so we'll provide that update as we get it. Next slide. Oops, sorry. All right, now to provide you a budget overview. As I mentioned earlier, this is the start of a new legislative biennium. We have a 2-year cycle, and the first year of that cycle is scheduled to last 105 days. The primary task in front of the legislature are to adopt new biennial budgets. The state has 3 budgets: an operating, capital, and transportation budget. In addition to their budget work, they will also consider and adopt policy bills. In the operating budget, budget writers are anticipating a $12 to $14 billion shortfall over the next 4 years. That shortfall is largely caused by rising costs, lower than expected tax collections, and increasing demand for public services. The transportation budget has been facing revenue shortfalls for some time now as well. Over the next 10 years, there's still a multi-billion-dollar shortfall in delivering transportation projects. The capital budget is the most stable of the 3 budgets, but is not expected to increase in size like it has in recent years. This budget funds brick and mortar construction like your parks, community buildings, and is the most reliable way of seeing a return on investment for Kent taxpayer dollars coming back to the Kent community. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brianna to go over the next few slides for you.
Yeah. Councilmember Boyce.
Yes, could you repeat what you said about the natural gas? Even though it was defeated, but you said it was still some stuff to determine it?
Yeah, so even though it was, the governor basically has indicated, and the media has reported, that they're going to be challenging the single constitutionality of that initiative. So the outcome of that is still kind of really unclear. They're going through some legal processes.
Okay.
It was even legal to have that on the ballot.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead. And I don't know.
Yeah, there's a requirement in our state constitution that for an initiative or a referendum that it can only handle a single subject, and the opponents of the initiative are now challenging that rule was violated and that the initiative covered more than one subject.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Amina, for that overview. I am going to transition into a discussion around your legislative agenda. Just to reorient you all to the documents that you have before you. For years, I've recommended that you adopt a 2-document legislative agenda, with the first document being your top priority items, which are your 3 to 5 high priority items, which are frankly where I spend the bulk of my time and energy on your behalf. The policy document is a much more thorough document that is a list of policy positions where you all are providing guidance and direction. These are all of the, I would say, a lot of the time that city staff are spending reacting to, evaluating, and weighing in on the hundreds of different bills that we see introduced that have an impact on City of Kent business. The top legislative priorities are the ones that I really want to spend the bulk of my presentation time on with you. And again, these are the ones that I'll spend the bulk of my time and energy on. The first one is an effort that we're calling Uplifting the Kent Community. And this builds on our previous efforts from last legislative session to bring additional revenues into the Kent community. Last year, we took an interest in focusing on public safety, and we really got feedback from the legislature that they were not interested in providing the City of Kent nor any community with a councilmatic tool to fund public safety. So over the interim, we brought many different legislators to Kent. We met with them in longer meetings to have really detailed conversations to explain why Kent is different. You all just adopted a budget and recognized that you all had to be reserved in how you balanced that budget. I'd also note that the budget that you all developed was a result of not having as many resources as many other communities in the region or throughout the state. And a big part of that is because in 2007, 2008, the state changed how sales tax was sourced. And you all continue to have a really high concentration of warehousing and manufacturing and shipping businesses. As we've sat down with legislators and explained the unique situation that the City of Kent and the Kent community finds itself in relation to sales tax sourcing, they really appreciated and understood the predicament that we find ourselves in. For years, we've been relying on mitigation payments. I think many of you are familiar with streamlined sales tax mitigation payments. Well, those mitigation payments are scheduled to completely end in 2026. You'll recall that we had done an effort prior to the pandemic to put those to keep those mitigation payments in place, but to phase them down over time. So now they are phasing down and about ready to be eliminated. Of the overall amount of those mitigation payments that are still being issued out to communities, Kent is receiving more than 50% of the remaining revenue, which is highlighting the continued disproportionate impact that sales tax sourcing is having on the Kent community. We've had conversations with members of the House and members of the Senate to explore different financing options, resources, different mechanisms, and different tools. And I am optimistic that in our work with both chambers that we will be able to find a path forward on a mechanism this upcoming legislative session that could look like state revenues continuing to come to the city. It could also look like councilmanic tools for you all to avail yourselves of. At this point, we are not locked in on a specific proposal. We are continuing to have dialogue and conversation with our legislators in each chamber. I'll also note that it's possible that each chamber could choose to take a different approach, and that what we end up with at the end of the legislative session could evolve and change over the 105 days. So the legislative priority that you have in the draft document before you is really calling on the legislature to uplift Kent, and calling on the legislature to uplift Kent specifically because of the sales tax sourcing laws that the state put into place in 2007, 2008. It does not call out a specific piece of legislation because we know that conversation is going to evolve over the coming months. I want to pause there. This is where we plan on putting the bulk of our time and energy. I want to welcome either the city administrator or mayor who have been working with me closely on this over the interim months to offer any comments that maybe I've forgotten, but also take any questions that you might have and have any discussion that is necessary on this topic before we move on to the others.
Yeah, thank you, Brianna. Council, any questions? I would just like to emphasize some of the points that Brianna has made. We've been doing a significant amount of work since session ended last time, going into the next session, meetings with leadership in both the House and the Senate, meeting with committee chairs and meeting with our representatives. Do want to call out very much the support that we've received from Representative Chris Stearns and Senator Claudia Kaufman in helping us sort of look for a path forward and the willingness to meet with city staff, meet with Brianna and her team as we try and find a way to really uplift our community. I am cautiously optimistic as we go in. We'll see, but again, I'm very, very grateful for the support that we've received this far and the guidance as we've been putting things together.
There are no other comments and questions. I'll move on to the next item. So the next item on the legislative agenda is a $9 million capital funding request for your new administrative services building, and in particular to make green improvements and improve the building's energy efficiency and comply with the state's clean building standards. So this would be solar panels, a battery energy storage system, installing LED lighting, and installing energy efficient windows. You just heard the budget briefing from Amina, where she outlined that the state is facing significant budget challenges in both the operating and transportation budget. This request would be in the capital budget. An average appropriation in the capital budget is $800,000. And I'll note we're asking for $9 million. So this is a very bold request. But one of the reasons we feel comfortable making this very bold request is because we're focusing on energy efficiency, and we've seen a slight increase in the amount of revenues coming in from the Climate Commitment Act. So we do think there may be an opportunity to bring a significant amount of funding to this project. Climate Commitment Act dollars are currently allocated on a percentage basis and in a formulaic way across the 3 different budgets. And so there's not necessarily a guaranteed pot of money right now for this project, but we know that the legislature is going to actively be talking about how to allocate Climate Commitment Act dollars this upcoming session, and we want Kent to be considered. The other reason that I'm comfortable with this very high dollar amount is that it's to include many different components. So as we go through the legislative process, if the funding opportunity is not aligned with a $9 million request, we can also pivot by focusing on 1 or 2 or 3 or however many of the items to get to the funding opportunity that emerges. Any questions on that item?
Councilmember Boyce.
Yes, I would say that overall, I like this strategy, really, because I think in the past we have really been focused on something very narrow, like, public safety, so this is kind of opening up how I see it, where you can kind of have a large gap that you can go into. So I just want the strategy and approach. I think it's a different way and a good way to try to make things happen. So just want to comment on that.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? We'll move on. So the next item is online utility bill pay. This is an operating budget request for $2.63 million for the state to partner with the city in updating its antiquated system and improve the utility bill paying process for all Kent residents. This is an item where we see there being a significant community-facing component to the project, and we'd like to give the opportunity to our legislators to join as our partner in implementing it. The operating budget is facing some significant challenges. Of the requests that I've outlined so far, this is the one that I'm least optimistic about. But we're gonna move forward with it and see if we can make something happen. The final item on your top legislative priorities is to join communities along the 405-167 corridor to request $3 million in the transportation budget to complete a funding and phasing plan for improvements on State Route 167. You'll recall that in recent years, 405 and 167 have been combined into a single corridor. The 405 portion of the corridor has already done this funding and phasing effort which includes identifying projects and how much those projects cost to allow them to apply for grants and otherwise bring money to the corridor. The 167 portion of the corridor has done a master plan, but has not gone as far as doing a funding and phasing plan. And until that funding and phasing plan is completed, that portion of the corridor won't be as well positioned to take advantage of funding if and when it becomes available. So a relatively modest $3 million request to do that work. That funding would go to WashDOT, and WashDOT would do that work. So it's not necessarily funds that would come directly to the city. Any other questions on the top priority items before I move on?
Questions? I would like to just quickly add on that master plan piece. In past years, we advocated for that plan to be developed. With the combination of 405 and 167, there was a definite feeling by South County cities that 405 had gone through that planning process, and then the tolling revenue that was being collected on 167 was funding those projects because there was an actual project list. So with the master plan, we've started down that path to make sure that this portion of that combined segment of road is getting the attention that it needs. So very, very hopeful.
I'm not going to go through the legislative policy document one by one because I want to go home and go to bed at some point this evening. But you all have reference to it, and pretty much what we've done is taken different policy areas and divided it into different subjects that generally loosely align with the various departments that you have. What this list really is, and list of policy positions, is that when I see different bills that touch on these topics, I then notify the departments that a bill has been introduced. The departments spend a great deal of time reviewing that legislation, providing me with feedback that I integrate into the legislative advocacy efforts in a variety of different ways, whether it's sharing that feedback with the Association of Washington Cities, sharing that feedback with the bill sponsors, sharing that feedback in a written comment or public hearing. It varies based on the topic and sort of the politics of the issue. But it is a long list of variety of subject areas that we do engage in to advocate for the city as a whole. And I would just reinforce the comments that the city administrator made earlier. You have an excellent staff that dedicates a lot of time and resources to evaluating the impacts on not just the city of Kent, but all cities for bills. And cities throughout the state benefit from the work that your all's staff do, in addition to it benefiting the Kent community. So next steps are for you all to consider and approve the legislative agenda and policy document that you have before you. This week we are actively in legislative committee days. Amina and I spent all day yesterday and today in Olympia, and we're headed back there. Legislators are meeting in work sessions and figuring out who's going to be serving on what committees, and particularly on the effort to uplift the Kent community. We've been actively advancing that forward. The legislative session begins on January 13th. You may be hearing about some more activities between now and the beginning of session, where we'll be working to engage you all and advocate for the issues on the legislative agenda leading up to the beginning of session. It then will go for 105 days and end at the end of April, and hopefully we've found success in the process. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Boyce.
Just a quick comment. Your reports that you sent out during the session is very valuable. So I really appreciate you doing that, and definitely look forward to reading those again. So just want to let you know they do get read.
Thank you so much for saying that. We do often wonder whether they get read. Amina is going to be helping me on those reports. You all should have gotten one just a couple weeks ago about the governor's transition and budget scenario. We'll have another one of those coming out next week, recapping all of the committee activity that's occurring this week.
Thank you.
Council President.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Brianna, and thank you, Amina, for coming down here and giving your presentation. And I appreciate meeting you during the legislative sessions. And my offer is there again. If you need us to be there in Olympia, we will be there. My question is about the transportation, budget, the gas tax mostly. They're looking at the road use tax. Is there an opportunity for local governments to be engaged in part of the conversation to see if some of that funding could come down this way?
Yeah, absolutely. And so just a little bit of background. So the cities receive a portion of gas tax revenues that are generated through the state's policy, and gas tax revenues are declining in their collections. So the state is actively looking at how to replace that as a revenue source for themselves and their own budget needs. But as gas tax is declining for them, our distribution of that is also declining. So the request is whatever the legislature chooses to identify as a replacement source for the gas tax, whether it's a road usage charge, a tire fee, goodness knows some other idea that hasn't even come forward yet, that whatever revenue is generated is shared in the same historic way that gas tax revenues have been generated. So that's how that message has been conveyed thus far. The Association of Washington Cities, what day is it, has a work session that was today, but I think it was hopefully recorded, that really provides some detailed information on that transition, and we'll definitely be looking for opportunities for anyone to engage on that issue if they'd like.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Brianna. Thank you, Amina. I do think it's a fair place to also say the King County Council today promoted Representative Orwell to Senator Orwell. So that
Wonderful. The things that happened outside of Olympia.
That was made official. I did see a picture online of her being sworn in. So excited to work with Rep. Orwell in that new capacity. She's been a fantastic champion for us and will continue to do so in the Senate. So
Great. Thank you for sharing the news.
right. Thank you so much. All right, we are going to move on in the agenda to bids. We
have a motion for that.
Oh, I am so sorry. Absolutely. A motion would be in order to approve the 2025 legislative agenda.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the city's 2025 state legislative agenda as reflected in the 2025 top legislative priorities and policy document discussed during other business at tonight's council meeting.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right, we've got our work cut out for us. Again, thank you both very much for coming this evening.
Should go home.
Yeah, and it is time to go home. All right, we are now going to move into bids. We have two bids this evening, Linda Heights Pump Station and Kent East Hill Operations Center Power and Fiber. And presenting on these this evening is our Public Works Director, Chad Buren.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll take that as a cue to go quickly. Linda Heights Pump Station, this is a replacement of a sanitary sewer pump station on the West Hill. It's been up there operating for over 70 years and has reached the end of its useful life. So the new pump station we placed closer to the road, and there will be a remodel of the park happening. There's a park that exists around the pump station right now, so we'll remodel the park, and we've been working with the Parks Department on that as the pump station gets built. So excited to have those combined. This was put out for bids a few weeks ago. We received 5 bids. The low bid was from RL Alia, and the engineer's estimate for $5.9 million. Engineer's estimate was $6.2 million. So pretty close bids, and we're excited to have this one going.
Any questions for Chad? All right, a motion would be in order.
Madam Mayor, I move to award the Linda Heights Pump Station project to R.L. Alalia Company in the amount of $5,921,850.46 and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the city attorney and public works director.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Second bid, Kent East Hill Operations Center, Keyhawk, power and fiber. This is to get power from nearby, excuse me, power substation up to the facility, and then bring fiber over from Station 74 just off 116th. So we'll have fiber optic cable and power. This was a necessary part of the job, but we didn't include it in the original contract because we wanted to bring it in with a specialized contractor. So this is somebody who's going to bore the power conduit, and then they'll also bring aerial and boring over from Station 74. So we advertised this for bids, received 3 bids. The low one is from Waco Construction for just under $720,000, and that's off of an engineer's estimate of $975. So we've got some really good bids on this one. We're excited to see this one going as well.
Right. Any questions? Okay, a motion would be in order.
I move to award the Kent East Hill Operations Center Power and Fiber Project to Waco Construction, LLC, in the amount of $719,159.69, and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the city attorney and public works director.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. All right, item number 11 is executive session. We do not have one this evening. That brings us to the bottom of the agenda. Council, I want to say thank you so much for the work that you have done on 2 really significant items. So the passing of the comprehensive plan, that is something that that work began, a couple years ago. So much conversation. Kristen Holdsworth and her team and all of the city staff that have built that plan brought us this far. We have had it out for comments, and you've heard it from Kristen. This plan is being held up as being spot on and doing all the things we need it to do, and an example around the state. You should be very, very proud of the work that you all have put into this, and I am so grateful that you passed that on consent tonight. The second piece is our budget. We've had a lot of conversation about that as well, work that you've been doing and providing your insight and requests from starting in February. And as we've gone through the process, all of our directors and city staff work really on building that budget from the beginning of the year. We'll be starting that process again, but really in earnest in late spring, early summer, to be able to present it to you in September. The process has gone very smoothly, and I really do think that's because of the collaboration and communication that we have collectively been able to establish in the work with our department. So I want to say thank you very, very much for your work on that. Pat, you said it. We have an exceptional staff here at the City of Kent, and want everyone to be very, very proud of the people that come and work every day, both supporting you and supporting our residents in the community. Could not ask for a better team across the board. Very, very proud of the work that gets done here at the city. With that, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year. We will see you in 2025. We're adjourned.